Hello?
Michael.
Who's that?
This is Artie Lang. How you doing, man?
Artie. Good, man. How you doing?
Good. I really appreciate you doing this.
Oh, please. My pleasure.
Hey, Artie Quitter podcast today. This is a big deal for us here. We don't usually get people who are technically celebrities on the show. I'm on the phone with Michael McKean, who has done pretty much everything you could do in the world of comedy. That's pretty much the case.
Artie, you're lucky that I like you, Artie, because I don't like just everybody call me a celebrity.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what Dan or Harry told you, but you're doing an enormous favor right now because no one listens to this podcast. We could have just talked on the phone, really.
Well, let's do it. We're on the damn phone anyway.
You're right. That's true. I mean, but this is not going to in any way improve your career doing this. Or not one more person will watch a show. Not one more person will buy something because you're just doing a favor, and I appreciate it. When Dan said you were going to do this.
I'm loving this.
Yeah, when Dan said you were going to do this, I was like, what? He is? Well, so I'll just rattle it off. Lenny and Squiggy.
Please.
Lenny and Squiggy on the Laverne and Shirley show. Character you created, and really iconic in a lot of ways. You got, how about this? David St. Hubbins from Spinal Tap. This is Spinal Tap.
That's right.
Right there. If you died there, you're like you're legendary status.
Hey, if I died there, I'd be a vague memory. I'd prefer something better. I'm holding out.
Well, let me ask you this. So then you go to the Christopher Guest movies,
right.
The Mighty Wind, all that stuff, and you're nominated for an Oscar. You and your wife Annette O'Toole.
That's right.
Who a lot of people know. First of all, good job there. Beautiful. My God.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. You guys get nominated for an Oscar for Best Song, and all that stuff that goes along with that. And now Better Call Saul, which is your character on that is so funny. That first episode, you just don't know really what's going on. He comes to that house, and you're in a. Let me ask you this: what do you recognize the most for lately? Like, what do of all those things? What do people? Spinal Tap. I would assume Spinal Tap, maybe, but the guest movies are big.
Last couple of years, people are recognizing me from Saul, and everyone's got a metallic blanket gag or something. Everyone wants to do, which is fine. Which is I'm just glad that the character is sort of widely detested because he's an awful person.
Yeah, you find that out. You find that out too. It's great how that. Well, explain your character. First of all, Better Call Saul, the spinoff from Breaking Bad with Bob Odenkirk. Right. I've never met Odenkirk. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, really?
Man. And I'm such a fan.
Awesome.
He's so funny. So he's Saul. Explain the situation there.
Well, he plays Jimmy McGill, who eventually becomes Saul Goodman.
Right.
At this point, he's a young lawyer. He doesn't have great credentials, but he's got real chops, and he kind of tiptoes up to illegality sometimes.
Right.
And he's kind of a shyster, but he's kind of a good guy too.
Yeah, you like him. You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm his big brother. I'm the one who has always done everything right. And you get the feeling that there's some sibling rivalry that goes really dark and really deep.
Right.
And I don't want someone with my name. I'm Chuck McGill. He's Jimmy McGill. I don't want someone named McGill on my turf. That's all there is to it. And I don't trust Jimmy. I've had to bail him out so many times, and now all of a sudden he wants to be my peer, and it's kind of it's anathema to me, and so that's what I'm about.
Right.
But I'm also suffering from this strange malady, which is a genuine thing. There are people who are hypersensitive to electromagnetic fields,
right.
And so it's a construct, but it's based on reality.
First of all, okay, so obviously for the people that might not have seen it, it's a prequel really to Breaking Bad. This is him before he gets involved with all those people and he becomes Saul.
Right.
But which is a great way to go with it. And also, what a great quirk to have your character have, and the writing is great, and the way they slowly roll out everything you just said.
Yeah.
From the pilot. And you guys are great. I mean, you do such a great job on there, man.
Well, we got some great people writing for us, and the cast is amazing. Ray Seahorn, who plays Kim, who is Jimmy's love interest, and she's a wonderful actress and very funny. And of course, you got Jonathan Banks, the world's baddest ass,
right?
As Mike Ehrmantraut, who is he's so brilliant and just. He is one of those guys who can kill you from across the room with a stare.
He is, yeah, and he's so great in Breaking Bad, and eventually his character in Breaking Bad. What a job! And I'm going to give you something I just figured out. You and Mike and your wife have something in common. Both in 48 hours, correct?
That's true.
Both in the film 48 hours.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they saw each other at an event, and I see Annette doesn't go to see her movies.
Right.
More than once, So she had kind of forgotten that he was in it. And, of course, he had more hair than everything.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody did. And but it was he's just awesome. He's a really lovely guy.
Yeah, and that plays Nick Nolte's love interest in that, and
that's right.
48 hours. Yeah, and he was younger. It's funny seeing him younger in that because he gets shot on the steps. His character's kind of a sympathetic cop, and now he's one of those guys who aged in such a cool, like you said, badass way.
Yeah,
and he's perfect for it.
He's kind of like Ian McShane in that way.
Yes,
Ian McShane has always been good. He's a wonderful actor. He's always been really interesting. But as he's gotten older, he's gotten sort of gnarlier, and more powerful. And Jonathan's the same way. We got to put him in a movie together.
Is Ian the guy? Is Ian McShane the guy from Sexy Beast?
Yes. And Deadwood.
Right. Okay. But Sexy Beast. The guy you're talking about in the movie Sexy Beast is so brilliant because you think you met the devil when you meet Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
But you realize you met the devil's assistant.
That's right. Yeah.
And Ian
what a great movie that is.
Oh. Unbelievable.
That movie comes back. Every time it's on, I'm stuck. I'm not leaving the house.
I'm there with you.
It's a great one.
Yeah. So Better Call Saul, which is great. Congrats on that. But so talk about Lenny and Squiggy. Talk about the origin of that. Like what? How did that happen?
David Lander and I were we met at college. We were both teenagers.
He was Squiggy,
in Pittsburgh.
Right?
He was Squiggy, right? And he was. He and I just met, and we had a lot in common, lots to talk about. And among the things that we talked about were these kind of goofballs that we knew in high school. And we just kind of fell into a rhythm with these two guys. And we used to do them for the amusement of our peers. But 9 years later, Penny Marshall, who was a friend of ours,
right?
She was about to do a spin-off of Happy Days with Cindy Williams, and created by her brother Gary Marshall and Mark Rothman and Lowell Gans. And they didn't have a supporting cast. So Penny said, look, why don't we do this? Why don't we hire you guys as writers, and then you can maybe write those characters in.
Wow.
Because we were writing with the Credibility Gap at the time with Harry Shearer. And,
the Credibility Gap, an amazing, really like your own little version of Second City in a way, right?
Well, it was. Yeah, we were all scripted. We didn't improvise.
Oh, okay.
It was mostly scripted stuff.
Right.
But it was. Yeah, we were a nightclub act, and we'd made records and did radio.
You did the Rose Parade, stuff.
We
right?
did. Yeah.
Oh God, is that funny?
There's some funny stuff. Yeah, thank you.
I recommend anybody to find that.
So Penny invited us to a party, kind of celebrating the sale of this idea to ABC. And so she said, hey, guys, she was married to Rob Reiner at the time, and she and Rob loved those characters. So they said, come on, do the characters. So we just kind of launched into a thing that we had never done before or since, just some kind of riff about the two guys wanting to go to trade school to learn how to be butlers. and we got a lot of laughs.
I'm laughing at it right now.
And some of the producers were there, and they said, yeah, let's hire these guys. So we decided to take the lazy man's way out, and we wrote ourselves into the first episode, and they said, this works, and so we stayed with the show.
No, man, what a story! I didn't realize it was that planned out, and then to do something at a party. That's one of those legendary stories you never hear. I mean,
well, it's kind of fluky, like show business, like life, is very fluky.
Right.
You never know what's around the corner.
You know, you guys, that group of people that you just mentioned back then, I mean, you know, obviously being such a fan of comedy and growing up in that era, I like to think that all you guys were buddies and hung out every night. But, you know, the original SCTV guys, the original writers of SNL and the cast members, you know, you and like, you know, Harry Shearer and Fred Willard and David and Penny Marshall and Rob Reiner. Like, what an extraordinary generation of you know, the National Lampoon guys coming into what a generation of comedy sort of kids that took over, you know, Bill Murray and you guys.
But you see that from time to time, though. You know, there is you know, the kind of the next generation was all the guys who came out of Boston,
right?
You know,
absolutely,
and that comedy scene. You know, they spring up from time to time, various places. You know, and it's kind of like, you know, all of a sudden there were all these great bands coming out of Seattle. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's that same kind of thing. It's kind of a flashpoint thing.
Yeah, you know, you're right about Boston. That's a good analogy because I started going into the city. I grew up in North Jersey, and the city. I was lucky because New York, the place where I had to go to be a comic, to me it wasn't L.A. It was New York, and was 7 miles from where I grew up. And I went in the late '80s, early '90s. I went there, and right at that exact time, you're right. Just all these guys just dropped out of Boston. Louis C.K., Nick DiPaolo, you know, all those guys, and
David Cross.
All those guys came down. Cross Comedy was a group, I think. And you're right, it's a similar thing. But you guys back then, you went on to do such legendary stuff. You know, think about the promise you guys had, and that you delivered on it. You know, you go on to do, you know, after Lenny and Squiggy, you do Spinal Tap, and you know, SNL. I forgot your stint on SNL. You know how good a career has to be if that's an afterthought. You know,
well, I'll tell you, it was not really a marriage made in heaven. You know,
right. It's hard.
I think the time to do SNL is when you're like 30 and hungry.
Right.
And I was 45 and kind of couldn't give a shit.
You know what, though, Michael? You were still great. You were still great, though, man. You were still great on that show. But I mean, I did a show called Mad TV when I was 27, and they had me come back after, you know, I was on the first 2 years. It lasted 14 years. God bless it. I still get checks.
Yeah.
But you know, they ask you to come back. The last few years, they had their 20th anniversary, and you go back and you realize, sketch is a young man's game.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
You're exactly right. Yeah.
But so you do that in a real organic way. I never heard that story before about the party and everything, and it's just what a unique time. And then so now tell me about Spinal Tap. Like, you're talking about some of the funniest guys on the planet. Is that a Christopher Guest idea that he pitches you? Did that come from characters you did, or yeah?
Well, in a way, Chris and I had we were roommates at NYU. And you know, we knew each other forever, and then we.
You were roommates. What are the odds of
one?
What are the odds of one funny guy being in a room?
That's amazing. Well, I was living with my girlfriend, and then she got a gig in Minneapolis.
Right.
And she gave the apartment to her father.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get out of Dodge. So I moved in with Chris, and we had this little apartment, and we wrote songs together and stuff, and he was a very funny guy, and then years later, Rob Reiner was doing this TV special, and they wanted to write a sketch about, musicians, about a parody of Midnight Special, the old Wolfman Jack show. And so we created this act. Chris and I wrote the first song, and then we did it on this show, and that was really the birth of Spinal Tap. And then a couple of years later, Rob was looking to start his feature career, and so we did we improvised a demo version of the movie.
Right.
And then eventually we got the financing, which wasn't much, and we fired it off. We shot it in late 1982 and released it in early 1984, and that's how that worked. Yeah.
Again, when you see that movie, it's rare that you see something that original for its time, man, and it holds up. It holds up. I mean, that's another one. When it's on, I gotta watch it. So many classic things, and you got the tour from it, and I mean, because you guys are real musicians too. It's a real credit to the talent you guys. Let me ask you one thing. What year are we talking about when you and Christopher Guest are roommates, and you're young guys doing all that stuff?
68, 69.
So you're living in the Village at that time. What was Greenwich Village like? 68, 69. Explain living in the Village and doing. It sounds like a dream. Doing comedy like that and songs.
Yeah, but we didn't do comedy in clubs or anything. You know, we were students. We were going to NYU with a lot of funny people. You know Tom Leopold?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Tommy was one of our pals.
I know of him.
Yeah. And you know, it was kind of a nice bunch, but we were mainly students, you know, and in the summers we'd get the hell out and go to you know, I did theater in Boston and then you know, places like that. But that was, you know, I was an actor. That's what I was doing. I was studying to be an actor.
Right.
And the music was just kind of a sideline, and comedy was just what we did to amuse ourselves. It wasn't until I got to Los Angeles in 1970 that I kind of got into the comedy game with the Credibility Gap, and they were on the radio at the time.
Right.
Harry Shearer and Richard Beebe and David Lander and myself. And of course, I'd known David in college, and that was my, you know, connection there.
No, but I mean, like being around the Village, the young kid at that time, was the scene still? I mean, I guess, you know, Dylan had gotten there 7 years before. He was already a big star. I'm trying to think, like the bitter end. And would you go as a fan? And was it still a cool scene like that?
It was. Yeah. Now I grew up in Long Island.
Oh, okay.
So we used to go into the city and you know, hang around in the Village and go to Gertie's Folk City and the Folklore Center, Izzy Young's Folklore Center. Just kind of hang out and, you know, pull a guitar off the wall and strum a little bit and hope that somebody famous walked in, you know. And when we could afford to go to the clubs, we would, or we'd see live concerts in the park. We saw the Grateful Dead's second show ever in Tompkins Square Park.
No kidding.
They played for free. Yeah. I lived around the corner. When I was going to NYU first, I lived around the corner from the Fillmore.
Oh,
so on a hot night, they'd open all the doors, you know, all the fire doors and everything, and we'd go up on our roof and we'd get to hear two shows by The Who. We couldn't see them, but we could hear them.
That's unbelievable.
You know, it was really fun.
Stuff. I mean, that just doesn't exist in music anymore. There's no place like the Fillmore, and there's no one like The Who.
Yeah. A lot of great bands.
What do you think when you walk around now, Mike? When you see the Village now? I mean, it looks almost like Disney built a Greenwich Village exhibit.
Yeah,
you know, right?
Exactly right.
Does it I mean, the city was dying. You know, Giuliani took all that Disney money, but is it disappointing to you walking around there now, or?
Well, yeah, it is, and you know, but these days I'm kind of a Broadway cat anyway. I'm, you know, when I'm in New York, I'm usually working uptown. Right. But I hang out down the Village just because I still love it and everything, and it's still, you know, it's still great, you know, and I don't go to clubs so much anymore. You know, when I do, it's just some real good reason to go, like it's a friend or somebody that somebody has you know, recommended to me. So it's a rarer thing, but you know, it's nice to have it there. I'm not you know, I like jazz, okay, but I'm not one of those guys who will go and see anybody play jazz. You know, it has to be some real good reason.
Right.
And but I love going to a club and discovering something I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it's good. But you know, listen, club going, like sketch, is a kind of a young man's game.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I'm still I've for almost 20 years now, I've been a regular at the Comedy Cellar down there on McDougal.
Right.
And I got to tell you, if you ever right next to Cafe Wa, if you ever want to excite a bunch of comedians, show up there one night and we'll
okay.
I'll buy you some dinner. It's a testament to New York, though, and cities like it, that jazz clubs like the Blue Note even stay in existence. Like the Blue Note is in that area where the rent must be insane, and enough people are still patrons of jazz to where it's open, and that's you know, I mean, they supplement it with other people, but that's great. So you know, so Spinal Tap hits, and you know, was that immediately a huge thing? In my head, it was.
No,
it was a rollout, right?
No. It was kind of didn't work in the theaters, really. I mean, there were people who were very passionate about it when they saw it. But it was, you know, it was up against things like Ghostbusters and Splash, you know, you know, big. That was the big comedy buck right then, and there were a lot of people who just didn't kind of get it, you know, didn't know why it didn't get the whole, you know, documentary look. They didn't understand why they'd never heard of this band. They didn't understand why the Meathead was directing it.
Isn't that disappointing? That's so disappointing that people don't get it.
Hey, well, no, eventually they did. You know, it found its home on home video, and you know, we're happy. People still love it. The expression that Harry Shearer used to use was, we should make something that's got some shelf life.
Right.
In other words, it doesn't go bad after 1984. It stays good, stays funny. And there are people who tell us that, boy, I hadn't seen it in 5 years. I saw it again, and I saw stuff I'd never seen before. And there's nothing that makes us happier than that.
No, it's great. I mean, shelf life. So the direct opposite of Splash is what you're saying.
No,
I'm kidding.
I'm sorry.
I'm busting you, John.
Splash is still funny.
No.
Ghostbusters is still funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, John Candy and Splash, it's worth it for the ticket right there.
But Mannequin was never funny.
We'll go with Mannequin. That's a better reference anyway.
I know. I love Kim Cattrall.
Yeah.
She's a nice person. She's a friend. That's one of the worst movies that was ever, but it was a big hit. What are you going to do?
I know.
You know?
Well, I mean, so you talked about the Meathead directing it too. Was Rob really self-conscious at that point about making that transition? You know, I mean, I'm sure he was, but
no, because he was playing a character. He was,
right.
He was kind of playing Marty Scorsese's character from The Last Waltz, but he was also playing a new guy. You know, he was playing kind of a hack.
Right.
Who just was a fan of this band and decided to go on the road with them and discovered just how awful they were.
Yeah, well, that's so funny you say that. I never heard the comparison to The Last Waltz. I'm thinking about it. So he was sort of a hack version of Scorsese. That's what you were going for a little bit.
Yeah.
And you were a bad version of the band.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, exactly. A jokier version.
But British, yeah.
Yeah. And so how much was The Last Waltz an influence on you for that film when you were writing it?
When we decided to do the film and we decided to have Rob as a character who was also directing the film,
right?
Marty Scorsese is the one that came to mind because he is in The Last Waltz.
Yes.
He's kind of he is himself in the film about making this concert film. And, but it was like a guy who was kind of marginally talented, just like the band is, just like, Spinal Tap is marginally talented. Right. And it was just it was of a piece with the whole concept in a way. But we watched Last Waltz, we watched a Grateful Dead movie, maybe two Grateful Dead movies. We watched that horrible Led Zeppelin movie.
Yeah.
I mean, the concert stuff in the Led Zeppelin movie is wonderful.
You mean The Song Remains the Same? The Song Remains the Same you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah.
But all the fantasy sequences and stuff is really deadly.
It is awful. It's scary bad.
It is.
Yeah. And
we saw Woodstock, and we watched kind of basically every rock and roll movie we could get our hands on. And we would just kind of say, well, like the character of Ian, the manager, played by Tony Hendra, that's kind of, I forget the guy's name, Peter something, in the Song Remains the Same.
Peter, the manager of the Zeppelin, right? What's the guy's name? He was a legendary, obnoxious, crazy person.
Oh, yeah. He was a hard ass.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we wanted that guy to be this, kind of roughneck, but an educated roughneck. A guy who went to Eton, but kind of came out, knowing that being a hood would make him more money.
He's amazing.
So
it's amazing. Yeah. Everybody hits perfectly on those notes in that.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Peter Grant. Peter Grant is the name of the guy.
Peter Grant. Yeah. That's it. That's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He was legendary for having maybe like one of those Cockney blue collar accents, like right screaming.
Yeah. Exactly.
You said my band is getting ripped off.
Exactly right.
I never heard the insight there. It's funny that The Last Waltz with Scorsese. Thinking back now, it's funny how he's almost necessary in it because those guys are such musicians. He had to pull the interviews out of them. You can always see him and Robbie Robertson at one point where he's like saying, Robbie Robertson's like, "Should I say that again? Should I?"
Yeah.
You literally see Scorsese directing them. Yeah.
Yeah, Robbie seemed to be like auditioning for a film career.
That's what he was doing, I think, right?
Because he knew how great he looked on camera.
Yeah.
And he knew that he had a personality and he was smart and he did do some acting after that. But, we mainly know him as the guy who wrote The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down and all those amazing songs,
Right. And the guy who, stole Levon Helm's publishing rights.
Yes, I know it all.
What a story! I might have to ask you here to maybe lie or not make any friends like you said before with Mannequin mad. But have you seen Vinyl on HBO? Speaking of Scorsese,
I haven't seen any of. I was kind of looking forward to it because I'm a big Bobby Cannavale fan.
He's amazing. Cannavale's amazing.
Oh, I've
yeah,
been a fan of his for a long time, and boy, the season that he was on Boardwalk Empire,
unreal.
It's sort of like that was so scary.
Yeah,
he was just out of control, just amazing. But and I haven't seen it yet, so I don't spoil it for me. I've heard people love it. I've heard people don't love it. I'll have to make up my own mind.
Cannavale's amazing in it. I'm a huge fan, but I'm going to give you a piece of advice. To avoid awkward conversations at dinner parties, don't see it.
Okay. All right.
I mean, there's a lot about it.
It's hard to get it right. It's really hard to get it right.
It's so hard. Yeah, you're right, man.
Yeah.
And that's why something like Spinal Tap, you go, wow. I mean, it's like what you guys were going for. Talk about hitting the bullseye. And it is rare, yeah.
Well, there's one book. It's a novel called A&R, and if you look it up, the guy's who was a writer for Billboard, and I think he's like an independent writer producer now. If you look it up, A&R, I don't have a
artist and repertoire, which is what the A&R is what the music business calls guys who they nurture bands. They're always the guys with the coke.
Yeah.
Right.
But I always found I thought that was like the best fictional representation. My father was in the record business when I was growing up, and so A&R is the closest I've ever read, as far as a piece of fiction about the way the music business works.
Oh, so it was a book, not a documentary.
It was a novel, yeah.
Oh, a novel. Okay, that's great. I'll check that out. I love reading about stuff like that. You go to
you got to read. There's a couple of other really good books that vinyl is kind of the same era. I can't remember the names now, but anyway.
Yeah, no, it's there's so many legendary stories, and without giving anything away, like I think vinyl went for a plot. A storyline that you could see in any episode of Law and Order instead of like a lot of great stories. Bill Flanagan's the name of the guy who wrote A&R.
That's right. Yeah, terrific writer. Yeah, really good.
When you went to L.A. as a young person, you say you found Harry Shearer, and Harry with a much different background. Obviously, he's a guy who was a child actor and such a one of the most brilliant guys. How do you guys find each other? Like, how do you find Harry? What's the credibility gaps?
Well, the credibility gap was David Lander was already there,
right?
And there were some other guys, and they kind of split off, and the custody of the name, the credibility gap, stayed with Richard Beebe, who was the news director at KRLA AM radio.
Okay.
Harry Shearer, who was a writer-performer, David Lander, and when I showed up, I was kind of the fourth wheel, and I was, I wrote songs and stuff and did, wrote sketches, and that was the first time I really, we would rip something off the news wire and just write a sketch, and then we would put it on the air with kind of a little straight news story, and then here's this. If there was a strike, for example, they said the morticians are on strike, and then they do the actual news story, and then we go into these characters we did called the Three Scabs, which is basically a Three Stooges type situation.
And they crossed the picket line.
Yeah, and they crossed the picket line, and it was a lot of fun to do. It was very sticky and very silly, but it was also kind of political, and it was fun. Of course, Nixon was in the White House.
Right.
Sam Yorty was in the mayor's mansion here when he was this really famously crap mayor. So there was a lot to work with. Reagan was governor. It was an interesting time to be doing satire.
Were you a political guy, Michael? And if you were, are you still? Or is that something? Yeah.
I'm kind of a lefty, but it's like it's gotten so stupid. I mean, politics has gotten so idiotic.
It's the only word for it, really. I was going to say, what are your thoughts on all this Trump era we're in? What do you think?
What? Thinking has nothing to do with it. It's all visceral. It's all buzzwords and clickbait and it's bullshit. So it's just I know how I'm voting and nobody gives a shit.
Right. I'll tell you the one positive that no matter how you land politically, you could say about Donald Trump is he is shining a light on a lot of corrupt ridiculous bullshit. That's the one thing you could say about him. That no matter where you are, and Bernie Sanders is too, but in a much different way. Because I mean that shit in Colorado, those delegates, that was like,
I know
the first time you see that, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like the system is fixed, but it's still broken.
Yes.
It doesn't. It doesn't land right, no matter how you look at it. So
that's a good way to put it. Actually, yeah. So now you Better Call Saul. How did that come about? Did you know Bob? Obviously, you probably did. And,
I knew Bob from years ago. Yeah, we had known each other kind of peripherally. I didn't know him terribly well. But he was a big fan of the Credibility Gap, and whenever we would do the rare times we would do any kind of appearances or have interviews where the surviving members would talk about the Gap. We did that a couple of times, and Bob would always be there, and he knew we were fans of his, and I met him very briefly at when I was at SNL. He had been there a couple of years before. And but we never had much of a conversation. And then Vince Gilligan, who I had worked with on the X-Files, he wrote a few episodes of the X-Files that I was in, and who had always called me up whenever he was producing something. He would always call and say, "Hey, this might be a part for you. You want to do this?" And I was always busy doing a play in New York or London or Chicago or someplace, and I was not available. So this time it just worked out. Everything just kind of landed right. I knew. Of course, I was a Breaking Bad fan, and I knew that they were doing this spinoff. And then I heard that that he wanted to see, he wanted me to maybe play the brother.
Right.
And so I said, yeah, of course. I didn't read anything. Didn't know anything about it, but I just knew that if Vince was doing it, it was going to be great. So I said, yeah, and it all kind of fell into place after that. And the character is so much more interesting than I could have imagined.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I said, yeah.
Yeah, that first show, there's so much stuff going on. When you see you, and first of all, the the great joy of seeing you in that, and you interacting with Bob, and then you're like, what is going on here? And it gets you. And you said about Harry before, you're like trying to make something that lasts. That to me, that's what I think you and Christopher Guest and Harry and Bob Odenkirk in a lot of ways represent. Yeah. It seems like you guys, if you have that rule, it'll always be good. And
well, look, I mean, look at if you're I don't know if you're a W.C. Fields fan.
Oh God, I can watch him forever. Absolutely. Yep.
Right. I mean, is the bank dick? Is that dated at all? No.
not to me.
It's still hilarious. Right. There are a couple of things that are not going to make African Americans happy,
or women, or people who don't like slapping kids.
But the thing, almost everybody in that movie is a complete blithering idiot, and that's why it's so amusing.
Absolutely,
that's why it's so much fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of this. I mean, there's the one scene where W.C. Fields is at the table, and the little kid is there. First of all, I don't know whether they got kids or were that funny. Yeah. The kid has great timing, and he's like, "What's the matter, Pop? What's the matter, Pop? Don't you love me?" And he goes, "Certainly, I love you." He goes, "Don't you dare strike that child." Well, he's not going to tell me I don't love him.
That's the key.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ideally, you want comedy to work no matter how many decades has passed. There's a movie called The Miracle of Morgan's Creek,
right,
by Preston Sturges with Betty Hutton and Eddie Bracken. To me, that's a funny movie.
Right.
And the fact that it's about, the early days of World War II when guys were going off to war and leaving little packets of pregnancy behind them, that doesn't date it at all to me. That just makes it funnier. And the fact that there's this earnest nerd who's in love with this kind of glamour puss, that's forever. And it's lovely.
Right.
So the stuff that I like, it has no decade stamp on it.
Subject matter. You're right. If you go for something like, no matter how technology goes or anything, if you go for stuff that issues that human beings will always have,
that's exactly right.
Love and falling in love. And it all works. And I mean, again, the good thing about Spinal Tap too is that so many people have tried to imitate that sort of genre you created, the mockumentary, and there's been a lot of great ones, but yours holds up because I think the first time you got it right, and that's hard for people to believe.
Well, thanks.
That's
very nice. I appreciate that.
Well, Michael, listen, man. I was kidding before, sort of, but this is a big favor, and
I sure appreciate it. You're a nice guy to talk to.
Yeah, if
Dan, not so much. Dan is kind of a pain in the ass, but Dan
is believe me, I've been living with Dan now for the last a year now, and I tell you what, I think we're Commonwealth married.
He's never going to marry you. No.
I'm looking for the money. I got a feeling Dan's sitting on a fortune out there in Chicago.
Could be.
Thanks for doing this. Better Call Saul is I would recommend it to anybody if you want to really see great television and great comedic interaction, the subtle stuff. Well, it's all great. Better Call Saul on AMC. And what season you guys in now?
We are going to start the third season sometime in the summer. Man. I also got to say that opening today, and by the time this is on, hopefully a success, is The Meddler, which is a film with Susan Sarandon. Yeah, I don't have a big part in it, but I certainly approve of it. It's great, and she's wonderful, and the rest of the cast is just amazing.
I heard about
Rose Byrne,
yeah,
Rose Byrne and Cicely Strong and Sarah Baker. Do you know Sarah?
I know of her.
Sarah
Baker.
She's great. Yeah. And just tons of really funny people. J.K. Simmons, who is always amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
So I do recommend that. It's going to be it's a lot of fun.
The Meddler and Better Call Saul. And again, we'll definitely know if the stuff is a success because it takes Danny a year to edit these things. So.
Clearly.
Michael, thanks so much, man. And
okay, Artie.
I hope to meet you down the road somewhere. I do need a place to stay when I'm in LA. Do you have a guest room or anything?
No, but you know what? We have an old car out back, and we'll give you some blankets.
Is it air conditioned?
It's fine. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, man. This was great.
Okay, guys. See you later.
Care.
Bye-bye.
Great Michael McKean. There he is. What I tell you, that is it's as big as vast and as impressive as a resume can get in the world of comedy. I was 20 minutes deep before I remembered SNL. And he's being humble there. If you see, he was on SNL when it was a challenging time for it with the critics and everything. But everything that guy does is it's going to be at least pretty good. And Danny really worked that. So good job, man. It was fun to talk to him. And as you can tell coming out, I mean, obviously Danny and I are, I guess you could call them comedy nerds or whatever. But he talks about stuff like W.C. Fields. Any young person wanting to become a comedian, people ask. First of all, a lot of people, when I talk to them at these clubs, they haven't seen stuff like this as Spinal Tap. I'm talking about people in their mid-20s, and I'm like, God, you just have to go. That's basic text. Just go. Never come back until you've seen that. And W.C. Fields is obviously you're talking about stuff that's almost a century old, but what a genius, and everything he does holds up. So I'm glad he brought that up. And Dan, did you ever hear the Last Waltz analogy with Spinal Tap?
No, I did not.
It makes sense that they obviously watched every rock movie. Because the other thing those guys get with Guest and Harry, the perfectionist level is unbelievable. Every detail. So it makes sense that they studied that stuff. But I never heard the main thing of Scorsese's in the film. And he's got to pull some of that guy Rick Danko, the bass player for the band, and that one guy who looks like he probably raped a kid in the woods. The one guy with the beard.
Yes,
he just sits with a blank stare. The other guy, one of the funniest parts of the Last Waltz is there's a guy sitting on a couch. He explains why they called it the band. And I think he may be one of the keyboard players, but there's him and the other scary guy. And you hear Scorsese's voice off the screen going like, well, just talk about the time. Huh? I think he told me the other day in the car. And the guy's got kind of like, a physical thing going on where he's kind of quirky and his head's moving. And he goes, well, we were, playing for Dylan at Woodstock. And he would always say, get the band. And we would call ourselves, the Dylan backup band or the band. And then finally we just decided to call ourselves. And then his head makes a weird thing. Goes, the band. We call it the band. And then Scorsese cuts right to, I think, the start of The Night They Drove
Old Dixie Down, right. And the amount of cigarettes that they smoke in that movie is unbelievable.
1977. If you read up on any documentary, or watch any documentary, or read any book about Scorsese, and I think I read this in the book, which God I'd recommend to any film fan, any fan of life. It's called Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. Did you ever read that, Dan?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, the reason it has that title is Easy Rider came out 69. Raging Bull was 80. So it's basically the 70s, the film business in the 70s. And before Bonnie and Clyde and Easy Rider, which were out within a year of each other, there wasn't really cursing in movies. There wasn't really a rated R type film where, stuff was implied. And certainly nobody said fuck in mainstream movies. That all changed, with the drug references. And then the 70s hit. And Scorsese has a lot of success. And Mean Streets. He did a short film called Italian American when he was at NYU. That's so fucking funny. He interviews his parents. But Mean Streets makes some noise. Then a Taxi Driver hits, and now he's a big deal. And he makes a film called New York, New York with De Niro. Actually, Clarence Clemens is in it, plays saxophone. Sax player, De Niro, the band De Niro's in it or something. It's called New York, New York. Liza Minnelli's in it. Big bomb. Big bomb. And Scorsese goes into a funk. And he starts hanging out, for whatever reason, with the band. He knows Robbie Robertson or whatever. He knows these guys through show business. He starts hanging out with them. And he goes, they make the documentary because I think he wanted to do something that was sort of personal to him and the music and everything. And you could tell that, his lifestyle's melding with theirs. And Scorsese goes into an awful, according to the book, drug era in his life. Cocaine every day, like massive amounts of blow to where people are scared for him. And he's getting thin and blah, blah, blah. And it ends with him going in the hospital. He went to the doctor because he wasn't feeling well. And the doctor said, look, you didn't have certain things you need in your body. And the doctor said, you have to stay here and get better. And that was right after the band documentary, The Last Waltz. That was the era in his life because New York bombing. What am I going to do next? Blah, blah, blah. And the legend is he's in the hospital recovering from 2 years straight of doing blow and drinking. And De Niro comes to him and has the book, Raging Bull, about Jake LaMotta's life, the boxer, and says, Marty, you got to get better because I'm not doing this with anybody else. This is it. This is the next thing we're doing. You have to do this. And Scorsese didn't want to. And De Niro talked him into it. And they get the money for it. They shoot one of the best films in the history of motion pictures, Raging Bull. And it comes out, and it almost ruins their career. It makes no money. Nobody cares. It opens up in the Select City thing, New York, blah, blah, blah. My uncle talked about seeing it on the Upper East Side. At that famous theater on the Upper East Side. I forget. I think it's still there. But, just nobody cared. No one in Kansas saw it. It's not doing Transformers numbers. But what happens? The Academy Awards happen. And as much as the Academy Awards can be pretentious, and as much as I hate about them now, in the 70s, they saved a lot of careers. And, that's when they were the coolest. Like, I just can't even watch them now with Ryan Seacrest asking what you're wearing. And there's a lot of great work going on. But, and Chris Rock did a great monologue and everything. But, there's so much pretense about it. I can't deal with it. But in the 70s, I could probably tell you, like, I know Super Bowls and World Series. Everybody who won the Best Actor and the Best Picture for every year in the 70s. Because, I just think movies were that cool at that point. So, Raging Bull gets nominated for everything under the sun. It loses Best Picture to Ordinary People, which tells you about Hollywood. Robert Redford beats Scorsese out for Best Director. Okay? When's the last time someone quoted Ordinary People to you? Maybe they do in Montana. I don't know. But to me, Raging Bull holds up a little better. But De Niro wins Best Actor. And it's his second Oscar. He won Best Supporting for for Godfather 2 in '74. So now he's on another level of stardom. But these guys are like kind of broke. These guys are not making a lot of money from movies. Pacino too, as big a stars as they were. That's why you see De Niro making every, meet the Fockers, meet the Frickers, meet the Jerk-offs, meet the assholes, analyze this, that, the other thing. You get a lifestyle. You want to keep taking Naomi Campbell to Paris on a private jet every other weekend. You got to make 15 minutes and meet the Frockers. Of course, Al Pacino's going to be the villain in a Sandler movie because he didn't make anything on Dog Day Afternoon. They made nothing. And still, these movie stars, Ray Romano and Drew Carey, could pay Robert De Niro and Al Pacino to do a play in their backyard. Every night. They just say, we'll double your salary every year for the rest of your lives. Don't make movies, do a play in my backyard. Drew Carey could say that to him. He dwarfs them in wealth. De Niro and Pacino weren't creating TV shows. Aaron Spelling could pay them to wash his car. Literally, they became famous because they were that great. And the projects were that great. And everybody met, like you're talking about Michael McKean, all those people met. Like he met Harry Shearer. He was roommates with Christopher Guest. How does that happen? I mean, that's the funniest people of their generation somehow meeting. It's very, 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 very cool to hear all those stories. And so, De Niro, after The Last Waltz with Scorsese, and, a bad, according to the book, drugs almost killed him. And he's in the hospital. De Niro says, come do Raging Bull. And, of course, then the 80s happened. And then what do they follow up with, by the way? You think they follow up with a mainstream film. This is what's so great about them. The king of comedy. De Niro plays the opposite of what he's known for. A bad wannabe comedian from Clifton, New Jersey. And it's fucking brilliant. Makes no money. God bless Leonardo DiCaprio. He said, you know what? At some point, Leonardo DiCaprio said to Scorsese, you need me and I need you. I can get your movies made. I can get The Aviator made. It seems like this conversation happened. And DiCaprio said, I don't want to be the star who does every shit movie on the planet. That's why I need you. So, by being with you, it gives me instant credibility, in a way, and street cred in the film business. And it probably guarantees the movies I do are going to be at least pretty good, sometimes great, and they have been. And Scorsese's like, okay, you'll make me mainstream, and I'll make a lot more money than I would have without you, and you'll get movies I want to make made, like The Gangs of New York. That ain't getting made until you see lead character Leonardo DiCaprio. And Leonardo DiCaprio, without Scorsese in that film, probably would have made, I don't know, The Beach 2. So they needed each other. And God bless DiCaprio for realizing that, and the respect he showed to Scorsese. And Scorsese showed respect the other way, and you get mainstream stuff. De Niro, on the other hand, found stuff like, Meet the Parents, and hit. Analyze this. The stuff like that, it made him bankable, and he does every movie on the planet now. But that made him bankable. That made De Niro. That very easily could not have happened, And you have a guy who's just a has-been, sort of, that people talk about fondly, like me and Danny and whoever. But that's the difference. Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, I'd recommend. So the fact that now in the modern way, Michael McKean has met Bob Odenkirk, who's another brilliant guy from a different generation, the fact that they hooked up and are doing Better Call Saul is to me something special, and you should check it out. So the great Michael McKean, Odenkirk, Better Call Saul on AMC. Check it out. And great job. Thanks again, Michael, and thanks, Danny Falato. And we might be back, I don't know. How long was that?
48.
Okay. We'll do something else. It'll either be a clip or be bullshitting about my ass. By the way, we're watching TV as we're doing this Prince Percocet. It looks like the prescription drug Percocet, an opiate, which is heroin in a pill, that doctors give out legally, might have killed him. In 2010, he had a hip surgery, took Percocet, got hooked, and that's it. Before you know it, one of the greatest musicians ever, an icon, is alone on a bicycle driving around a Walgreens. That's what happens. That's what happens. And your life becomes surreal. I was the same exact way, in a very, very lesser version a D-list version of Prince. Prince is doing concerts for 20,000 people in Paris, flies home on a private jet, and then you got to go to Walgreens to convince a pharmacist to give Percocet. But I'm not kidding. And then he goes home alone because he's hooked on it and has to stave off withdrawals, because you get withdrawals from Percocet the same way you get it from heroin. It's opiates. You need it like you need oxygen. And it limits your travel. Because you could say Prince has, that celebrity, thing where cops don't fuck with you. But it also works both ways. There's also cops looking to fuck with you. And if they get an inkling that Prince has a drug problem and his private jet lands in Tangiers for a concert, and they search the fucking place and the plane and Prince and his people and find drugs, he might be in jail in Tangiers for the next 30 years. So he's worried about traveling with it. So what does this mean? Now the clock starts. I got to do the concert. I got to get on a plane. Make sure the withdrawals don't start, because it's a living hell. And if someone who doesn't know you're on the shit and that's not in your inner circle sees you shivering like that, a lot of shit comes up, because you start to shiver in withdrawals and you can't function. It's the flu times 10. And it comes up about 7 or 8 hours after your last fix, after you last took the Percocet or took a shot of heroin. You got about 7 or 8 hours to get to Tangiers, do the concert, get back on the plane and leave. Now that's Prince's life. The way I was living it was, doing maybe a 2,000, 3,000 seat theater, doing the show, but guess what? I ain't got a private jet. So now I got to try to get through withdrawals at the Marriott in St. Louis. At about 3 a.m., when the withdrawals are so bad I'm going to jump out the fucking window, what happens? A lot of times you go down, you find a taxi cab guy who usually knows shit and goes, where can I get pills or dope? Maybe the third guy knows, maybe the first guy knows. They drive you there. Now you're in the shittiest part of St. Louis trying to score heroin at 4 a.m. You got a flight at 7, and you don't think you can get on it because you're in that bad of withdrawals. You don't think you can get on it. So it's 4 a.m., you're alone in the worst part of St. Louis or Pittsburgh or Denver or Detroit. I'll repeat that, the worst part of Detroit. the drug dealer's a Rottweiler. And, if you give the drug dealer money and he doesn't rip you off, which is 50-50 at best, and comes back with the stuff, you got to make sure it's the right stuff. Is it the Percocet you want? Is it enough? And then you somehow get home and you get to your regular dealer, and maybe you make it back inside to your lair and you get high and everything's fine again. And then you got to be at the Stern Show at 6 a.m. the next morning. But before that, you got to score again because it wasn't enough that you scored. It's endless. Okay? Anybody who's younger who wants to, get high with opiates, or like Prince, he had a hip problem. If they give you the Percocet, see, I'm begging you, young people, try to live with the pain. Say to yourself, can I deal with this pain without taking the chance of getting high on these opiates? Because look at Prince. Prince, 2010, he gets a hip thing. He's Prince up until 2010. Okay? After 2010, he essentially becomes a guy who's like a junkie at a Sunoco station who can play guitar. He's driving around Walgreens by himself on a bike. Probably, and I'm just guessing, but I've been there. He's probably got a pharmacist in there, in that Walgreens, that because he's Prince is helping him get the shit. And a pharmacist would know what he's going through, the withdrawals and everything. Prince says, I'll give you vast amounts of money, blah, blah, blah. So finally convinces the guy. It's not always the guy's fault. He could be berated in the chance where, like, what am I going to do? And he keeps supplying Prince with the shit, but Prince has to keep coming back because he needs more. And if Prince deals with a dealer, an outside dealer, now you're really sleeping with dogs and you're making fleas. What's the dealer going to do? He's got something on you. Now you're talking blackmail. Look what happened to Charlie Sheen. Blackmail. Scumbags. They're looking to latch onto your life. He's Prince. I mean, think about it. He's as big as it gets. And I'm telling you what my life was like. And I'm timesing the fame by 2 million and the talent. And I'm imagining what Prince went through. And you know what? It was almost, in a lot of ways, the same exact thing I was going through as a C-list comic. And you'll go through it if you're a doctor, a lawyer, you work in a deli, you'll go through it if you get hooked on opiates, man. Your soul and life slowly go away. So what's happened last week what happened, I'm assuming withdrawals came on to the point where he couldn't function. And a lot of people maybe on that plane weren't insiders and said, my God, he might die, and we never saw this before. Because, again, it looks like the flu. They stop. The hospital says, okay, you got to be honest with us. And the hospital says, okay, we'll release it as the flu because it could look like that. We'll be good to you there. And you got to hope nobody, an orderly doesn't call TMZ. And he got away with it for a little while. It looks like he might have gotten away with that. He was treated for a drug overdose. That's been almost confirmed. And they call it the flu. The cat's out of the bag now, though, because he dies a week later from the same thing. And the world mourns. And Spike Lee throws a dinner party. A block party. And Spike Lee lost his mind last night. It didn't look like anyone died. It looked like Spike Lee was trying to stay famous. We're going crazy out here, Anderson. Spike, I'm sure you're very upset. You were friends. I don't know. We're going crazy. Funky. He was funky. It's sad. I'm giving you, like, what I just described was my life for a long time. Get off Stern on Friday. Get off Stern on Friday morning. I got to fly to Phoenix. Okay. Am I going to I can't take a lot of this shit on the plane. What if I get arrested getting on the plane? Forget it. Then life's over. Legal issues. I'm out of show business. Blah, blah, blah. How many chances am I going to get? I take just enough to get on the plane and get through the plane ride. I don't know what I think is going to be different than every other time. I'm going to land in withdrawal, and now I'm in a panic. Because I got a show that night, maybe a show the next night. Now I got to get through a weekend in Phoenix performing stand-up comedy for thousands of people, maybe in withdrawals. Can't do it. A couple of times I talked myself into going to a hospital. I call 911 in the afternoon. Now you're begging doctors for shots of morphine. Begging them. You pretend you're in pain. You go, my stomach hurts, my back hurts. They give you a shot. But they don't know your tolerance. You're taking 100 Percocet a day. They give you a shot that they give an 8th grader for his tonsils. And it doesn't work. You feel nothing. You beg them again. Now they know what's going on. They kick you out. Now there's paperwork. You leave. Now it's 2 hours before the show. You're in Phoenix. So I get in the shower. I'm sweating. Am I going to do the show? Now you go to the street. Sometimes you ask the concierge. He gives you a look. Okay, forget it. Forget I said anything. Now you're paranoid. The cop's going to show up in my room because they asked the concierge, blah, blah, blah. Because he sees me, ask the town car drivers outside. They do know something. He sees me get in the car with the town car driver. We go to the ghetto in, Philadelphia or Richmond, Virginia or Miami or Tampa, wherever the fuck you are that time. And it's not like you're traveling and seeing the world because all you're seeing is the same shit. And you're doing the same shit. You take enough pills to get on the plane in Newark. When you get off the plane in bumfuck wherever, you're in withdrawals. And it happens every time. And the definition of insanity is what? You do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And now I'm here. You got a road manager, you got this, that's, these people, they care for you and they don't want to enable this, so you hide it from them. And, sometimes by the grace of God, you get through a show. By the grace of God, you get through a show. Enter Subutex, Suboxone, stuff that, this legal methadone now that they give you. It tastes disgusting. It doesn't really work. Do you take that? Does that work? But you can't take opiates within 12 hours of taking the Suboxone because you're going to full-blown withdrawal. That happened to me before. That's why I missed the Bob Saget roast. I turned green. I took heroin 3 hours after taking Suboxone. So, if you take the Suboxone, you can't have heroin for 12 hours. So now your junky head is going, well, I don't want to not get high for what if the dealer comes through right after I take the Suboxone? Now I got to wait 12 hours to get high again. But the withdrawals are going to start in 8. That's 4 hours of withdrawals. That's going to seem like 4 years without getting high. With the heroin right in front of me. I might say, fuck it, enough time has lapsed. I take it, now I'm green again, and I'm in the hospital. People love you, you're crying, blah, blah, blah. Endless cycle. Because you're a performer that's on the road. That adds a lot to it. You're not always home. So Prince was probably going through this, guys. He was going through what I just described on a higher level of fame and everything else. And in a way, it was worse for Prince than it was for me because he's way more public. Way more people in his life. Way more people he has to fool. In the audience and in his life, backstage. All the hangers-on. All the assholes. All the women. The women that say they can get you dope. And then they don't, and you see them on TMZ in an hour. Or the cop that arrests you down the fucking Jersey Shore and, for a DUI, and 14 minutes later he comes to your jail cell and talks to your jail cell and says, all excited like a little girl, hey, we're on TMZ. Great. Do you have a bat I can hit you with? I feel bad for the guy. He was clearly a sensitive, great artist, this guy, you know. And I'm sure at some point after 2010, if this is true, after that hip surgery, like Michael Jackson with the, you know, his hair was on fire and he had to take painkillers. He claims that's when he got hooked. No one's immune to it. Now you become a junkie. Michael Jackson was one of the most talented motherfuckers ever. And in my opinion, was a gay man who, you know, traveled with his womanizing brothers for a long time, and it fucked up his head in so many ways in the 70s with that domineering father. And imagine being gay in that house in Gary, Indiana. It's a 8x8, foot living room where you're practicing the dance moves for, you know, Beth. Or ABC. And you're also gay. Distorts the world a little bit. And the pain you have. And then you get high. You don't realize it's out there, but you get high because your head's on fire. And you go, wow, this feels good. All that pain's gone. And then you become a junkie. That's all you are. And it's so fucking sad. Michael Jackson was going 3 times a day to some crooked fucking plastic surgeon or dermatologist in Beverly Hills to get directly shot into his veins. Dilaudid. You ever have Dilaudid in the hospital? It'll knock out a fucking rhino in 2 seconds. 3 times a day he kept going back for his fix. With his kids in the waiting room. This guy was shooting him up. He would tell the nurse, it's time for Michael's shot. What did that escalate to if you have power and money? You move an operating room into your bedroom. That's what he did. A crooked doctor for $150,000 a month. 150 G's a month. Okay, I'll get the propofol from the hospital. I'll sign it out. I'll bring it in. I'll give you an IV every night. That gets you to sleep. But now you're broke because of all this. And, you know, if you have a habit of sleeping with little boys, that adds to the problem, too. Whether you touch them or not. If you like sleeping with them, you might have to pay people. What the fuck? Talk about a life. You know, all the shit you're hiding. So now he gets a shot of what? The adrenaline. He gets the JFK Jr. shot. The Dr. Feelgood shot. Which basically cocaine, methamphetamines. They shoot that in his veins. And now guess what? He does rehearsals and he's great. The day before he died, he was great at rehearsals because he was on fucking meth. Now he's got to go to sleep. And they give him the propofol again. And they thought they were going to do this in London for 2 months at the O2 Arena. So he can pay off all his debts, throw another $80 million in the bank, and never see the world again. You start isolating. And what happens? You have a beautiful sister who cares for you like Janet Jackson. And that's why there's tape of her at the gates of his house screaming, I want to see my brother. Because now there's people around him like this doctor who's afraid of everything, not opening the gate. Prince was going down that road. Before you know it, it would have escalated. If he didn't get treatment for it, it would have escalated to the pill. He can't get the pills anymore. The pharmacist is like, I can't do this because now the regulations are insane. And now with Prince dying, it's going to get even worse. You know what's going after Prince dying now? Forget it. To get a pill from a pharmacist now, you're going to have to bring Obama in. The president's here. He says it's okay. But this is what it takes. It would have escalated it to go into the street, and maybe shooting heroin. Once you start shooting it, I've seen it in rehab. It's like, I always go, thank God I never did that. Or smoke coke. For some reason, I had those standards. God forbid. But if you need it that bad to where if you're Prince, you risk that kind of exposure where you're on a bike outside Walgreens by yourself, you'll do anything to get high. And now you're bringing needles on the road. Now you got the works. Now you got to open it up and you got the needle, the tie off. You need a place to fucking put it in your arm. The Ray Charles movie, he was getting himself high intravenously blind. Right there, it's like, stop. This couldn't have happened. You ever go to the hospital to get an IV? There's women who went to 14 years of nursing school. It takes them an hour to get the IV in. They can't find the vein. Junkies are on fucking 38th Street. They do it in 2 seconds. How does that happen? Ray Charles did it blind in a hotel in Indianapolis, and I assume the conditions at the hotel were not that great. But that's where Prince was going. That cycle. He's probably looking at all his gigs coming up. And why is he doing the gig? If I was Prince, I'd say, I got $1 billion. I've done everything there is to do. Take time. And if you want to keep getting high, get high. Isolate yourself for something. Or why give yourself that stress? Who in your life do you have to make that money for? Was he having money problems? I don't know. I hope not. My God. Talk about money you spend. But for some reason, he has this schedule. So he's looking at it in horror. I got to go here. I got to go there. I got to go there. Am I going to get caught here? Get caught here? Am I going to be withdrawals here? Do I got to do a withdrawal show in fucking Seattle or Hawaii? Get on the jet. Who's going to be on the jet that day? Oh, that guy's interviewing me for Rolling Stone. He doesn't know anything. How am I going to hide it from him? Blah, 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 blah. You start canceling shit, interviews. And you get back home, and you're Prince. And now you become a little baby. You become a junkie on the street, begging, crying. Because no one's fucking immune. It's a physical thing. And you end up dead, alone in an elevator. When I heard that, these guys found Prince alone in an elevator, dead. Prince! There's a lot of people that are going to have to answer a lot of fucking questions. And the Michael Jackson shit, that doctor did 4 years. He deserved more, but whatever. But a lot of people got off there, man. A lot of people got off. His management, come on. Come the fuck on. You don't know what's going on. Again, I'm never a guy shouting Prince. I never extolled the virtues of Prince from the mountaintops. But I love his music like any other American and person in the world who has ears. And he's an American icon. Like I would talk about Michael Jackson, we'd goof on him being the molesting thing, and I would say to people who would give me shit about it, I am not happy that Michael Jackson might be a child molester. It's the saddest thing ever. This guy belongs on the Mount Rushmore of entertainment. Might be fucking kids and is a junkie, but as a comic, I might comment on it. Maybe it'll get him out of it. So, the thought of Prince alone, crying in withdrawals maybe as a junkie, isolating himself, those last few minutes, taking the last few Percocet that killed him, and slowly, his back slowly falling down the wall of that elevator, like Ken Norton during the Jerry Cooney fight. His life slowly going out of him. The guy who, who used to sing Raspberry Beret and Let's Go Crazy, and this brilliant genius, alone in an elevator, and his life slowly leaving his body as he tries to get another Percocet in his mouth. And then eventually, the sweet release of death gets him out of that hell. To the point where 911 is called and they find him there alone. Is the saddest thing ever. And if that sounds strong, I'm just telling you. I'm not being a hypocrite. Once a junkie, always a junkie. You're not stronger than this disease. I learned that. So I'm not going to be arrogant and say everything's going to be Jim Dandy with me forever. But I'm trying. And it's very difficult. It gets you. The great Charlie Parker, the saxophonist, who died at the age of 34 in 1955. Jazz great. Started the jazz form of bebop. Created it. Music revolution. Was a junkie. When he was 34, the coroner, who didn't know him, thought he was 70. He said, about heroin, they can get it out of your body, but they can't get it out of your brain. Withdrawals take about 4 days. 4 full days, and then the hell's over. Miles Davis talked about he had to get off it after Parker died because his career was done. He was shooting in his veins on the streets of New York. Miles Davis, after he made a name for himself. He'd been to Paris and was a jazz great already. But he saw his life going downhill without getting off the dope, and I guess he was about late 20s, not 30 yet. Goes to his father's farm in East St. Louis. His father was a dentist, Miles Davis. He grew up sort of middle class. It's kind of an interesting life. His father was a black man who became a dentist. Which, first of all, that guy deserves an award. Can you imagine going through that discrimination to become a dentist in the 20s and 30s in mid-America? So being a medicine man, a scientist, the father knew what he was going to go through with the withdrawals. And Miles Davis said, I'm going to lock myself in the room above the barn. And I don't want you to, no matter what, open the door and let me out of here. I'm going to get this out of me. And the father supposedly, Davis's father supposedly said to him, all I can give you now is my love. And good luck. And Miles Davis went through hell in that barn. This is the legend. And 5 days later came out, the sun was shining, and he felt fine. Now, when you watch the documentaries, the happy ending is he never touched it again. But when you watch the documentaries, he went back and forth. But that was the one that got him off it on a daily basis. I don't know how you dabble in it, but I guess there's stronger men than I. Because, yeah, you got to get it out of your head. You remember being high. You remember what the high did for you. It took away the pain. You forget the emotional shit, blah, blah, blah. The pressures of being Prince, it takes it away. There are pressures. I can imagine. You got to be careful what you ask for in this life. So, I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like I am with the facts. And just think about that. No matter what you do in life, no matter where you work. Think about, it took out Prince, it took out Michael Jackson, it took out Elvis Presley. It almost took me out a few times. And maybe it will eventually. But maybe it won't take you out. More details are dribbling in, and they just talked to Michael Biden, that well-known autopsy, the well-known coroner for L.A., for a while. He's got all the stories. And everyone seems to think it was an overdose of pills. And it definitely was that. Right, Danny? It definitely was that last week. They said that, right?
Yes, in Moline, Illinois.
Right. He was there for 5 days while they weaned him off it. And he tells him, I'm fine. It's Prince, let him out. I'm fine. And then what does he do? He gets on a jet and goes back to doing concerts. And one day it doesn't work out. All right. That's the podcast for sure here today. Rest in peace, Prince. I feel bad for you, brother. And if you're out there struggling, don't let it be you, no matter who you are, because you're important. You're as important as Prince, as important as Elvis or Michael Jackson. You got a family, you're important to them, and you're important to me, all right? Problem is, I'm not important to me. And if you have that same issue, you got to look into it. Do it when you're young, not when you're 48. All right. Take care, brush your hair. Great week. Michael McKean, thank you so much. Danny, I love you. And rest in peace, Prince. And I'll talk to you next week.